Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Jiménez Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from You Do You. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of I Have Something to Say. And I want to start by thanking my dear friend, Mercedes Jaime, who's on screen right now, for introducing me to these wonderful gentlemen and calling me earlier this week about this coalition that's been built to help rebuild and heal our immigrant business community in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the aftermath of the horrific murder of our brother George Floyd. I have here with us Mr. Henry Jiménez. He's the Executive Director and President of the Latino Economic Development Council. Hi, Henry. I also have Nasibu Sareva. He's the Executive Director of the African Development Center. Hi, Nasibu. How are you? Thanks for joining us. And I also have Jaylani Hussein, who's the Executive Director as well of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. They're all located in Minneapolis, and they all have so much experience. They have years of dedicated work in their communities, in the business community. And after reading all of their bios, I said, okay, how can I recap, and just introduce them and doing justice to what the work that they do, but so we can also get into the meat of this discussion, because it's critical that we have it as soon as possible. And all I can say is that all of these people you see, are fierce advocates, for the business community that they love. They have a genuine love and passion for the communities that they serve, and that they are true believers in collaborating. Did I get anything of that wrong?
The only thing I would add is that the number one criteria, the number one experience that makes us really good at what we do is that we're all the children of immigrants or immigrants ourselves. We're organizations that are led by folks that really represent the clientele that we have. So I just want to make sure that is our number one thing.
Fantastic. And thank you for bringing that up, Henry. And so, as I mentioned, Mercedes called me earlier this week, and we were just talking about the devastation. She shared with me how the riots and just the protest, everything that happened right there on East Lake Street in Minneapolis, how it impacted and affected this burgeoning and vibrant business community that was really that is basically founded by immigrants, right? And so she told me that you all got together to create this coalition that it's to rebuild and heal the immigrant business community in Minnesota. And so I just wanted to ask you how, I know what obviously compelled you to do this, but talk to me about your visit to East Lake Street, because I think that really brought it home. No? Maybe Jaylani, would you like to?
Sure. I'll go first. I want to just say that thank you for inviting us and being part of your show. I want to just say that in Minnesota, for a larger audience to know that this state has been one of the whitest states in the union in the 90s. And today, this state has become more diverse, particularly in the Twin Cities. Mainly because of the hard work of the immigrant community who come from Latin America and Africa and all over the world. And Lake Street particularly is another example of how economically depressed neighborhoods have been completely revitalized by the hard work of the immigrant population. I lived on Lake Street in the 90s, and I could tell you that it was not a very safe place to live. It was a place that was ready to be demolished. In fact, some of the biggest buildings there were ready to be demolished. But today, it's one of the most upcoming neighborhoods. In fact, many of us who grew up in that area cannot buy a house there because it completely has turned. And the unfortunate and perhaps the reality of what's happening in this country with police brutality and George Floyd's death is a moment for all of us to kind of look back at what happened, but most importantly, to recognize that in that moment we saw white supremacists specifically target immigrant-owned businesses who were burnt down, and they targeted them and did not target other corporations and other parts of the Twin Cities. And so, we know that we this community and in this moment are committed to fighting for justice for George Floyd, justice for all of the victims, and immigrant communities are oftentimes, part and parcel of the brutal end of what is happening in this country, the marginalization of our people, whether it's through deportation, whether it's through detention, whether it's through all types of police conduct that is impacting us. And so we hope in this effort also that we will build a stronger immigrant community that also fights state violence in the best way possible. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to come together. We know that this community has made what Lake Street is and what Midway is and what many of these urban community sectors that have been long forgotten about and today that have become almost the prize of what's happening here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. George Floyd's death is not in part parcel outside of what's been happening. It's exactly what's been happening. It's the reality of what's been on the ground. It exposes a lot of the issues that many of the immigrant community have been talking about for quite some time. In fact, just 5-6 blocks away from where George Floyd was killed, a Somali man was killed there, a decade earlier, right? So the immigrant community suffers from the same brutality that we saw targeted toward George Floyd and others. And then in this moment right now, the businesses that have revived that community are gone. And we hope that people who are watching today can go to our website, rebuildandhealmn.org, and learn about the story and become part of the future of the rebuilding and healing of this community.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's a powerful thing to see you working together. We've had many conversations with other leaders in the business community and also at the grassroots level about we need to stop working in silos. There's something to be said about realizing, that we see each other, we feel each other, because we have a lot of commonalities in terms of, our challenges, the way we were brought up. The more we share with each other, we realize, that we're all part of one, big familia, one big family. And it's just a matter of trying to bridge those gaps of misunderstandings and learn from one another, so that way we can be more like exercise solidarity with each other and really support everyone's well-being, because in the end, that's what's going to impact future generations too. And we have to model that behavior, right? And so I'm excited to know that you've come together. Talk to me a little bit about, your experience going to Lake Street, just recently, and doing like an assessment of the damage, and so you can determine what exactly needs to be done, to restore. And talk to us about what exactly that is. Like, what do you see as like those first three action items that need to be addressed to be able to start that process of rebuilding and of healing in the community?
If I may take this one and then pass it on to Nasibu to help me more with that assessment. I want the public to know that, you know, our organizations have been around for some time. LEDC, the Latino Economic Development Center, you know, just short of 2 decades of work on Lake Street and around the area here in Minnesota. Hundreds of businesses that were helped to get started or expand their businesses on Lake Street. We along with our partners here that you see on this call, have revitalized Lake Street. But to me, and I think to our business owners, it's more than just rebuilding and healing Minnesota. And again, rebuild and heal Minnesota.org, if you can please visit and donate. But it's about saving our culture. It's not about saving businesses. It's about saving our culture. When a paleteria or a taqueria or a pupuseria are no longer in our corridors, where do I take our daughters? Where do I take my brother's children here, Nasibu, to go eat our food? I don't want them to wait another decade. I don't want them to wait, 30 plus years like I had to be able to access what I grew up having as a kid. So when I say about investment and rebuilding here, it's about saving our culture, not just Latino culture or East African culture, but the culture that so many of our immigrant communities have worked so hard for decades to build. And to me, if you ask our business owners, and I know Nasibu can give you some stories here, but they said this, like, let the building burn. Like, the building doesn't mean anything. It's about, social justice for all of our brothers and sisters. But at the same time, we also need to take care of these brothers and sisters who have lost everything or have lost a lot, to make sure that our culture continues on, because the culture of Minnesota has changed and it will continue to change, and we need to support these businesses. Again, everybody, rebuild and heal Minnesota.org.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I love that, because you're absolutely right. I live in Orlando, for example, and it's very diverse. But when I first moved here, oh Lord have mercy, 17 years ago, it's like I couldn't find my medium grain rice. I couldn't find plátanos, like plantains. I mean, it was like a journey, like an odyssey, just to find that one staple item to at least feel some sense of, normalcy, because we live and breathe and eat and dream, our culture. And so, Nasibu, talk to me a little bit more about that, that cultural expression and that vibrancy of the East Lake Street community, and some anecdotes, that through your years of advocacy and involvement you've experienced.
Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your show. And I echoed my brother Jaylani and Henry on what they've just said about what happened on that Lake Street commercial corridor. Again, as eloquently as it was said by Jaylani, in early 90s, if you just look into the last, frankly speaking, 15 years, that was one of the places that everybody said you don't need to be there. It was a corridor whereby, frankly speaking, they used to say that you actually have a curfew. I mean, it's not a safe place to be there after 9 p.m., after 10 p.m. There were very few small businesses around on Lake Street corridor. And in the last 10, 15 years, it was Latino immigrants. They were African immigrants who actually have revitalized that commercial Lake Street commercial corridors big time. If it wasn't for, as Jaylani said, back in the days, there were a lot of abandoned buildings. And right now, all of those have been remodeled, they've been rebuilt, and the corridor was really very beautiful. But all what you could see, as exactly what Henry said, is a different immigrant a combination of immigrant culture that was all throughout that Lake Street Council. At this point in time, we've just started evaluating the damage, and there are over 200 small businesses that are affected, whether the business have been looted, vandalized, completely burnt down. And I was going through the list. Most of those businesses that we're talking about here, they are all immigrant small businesses that they need support. Again, as all of them have said really well, this is the time to rebuild and heal. The party is still gonna be there. Again, what I've said is that the lyrics, they're saying what the lyrics are different, but the melody it has been the same for police brutality to actually people of color, for Black folks. But again, with everything else that has been going on, I was so excited on what I have seen in terms of our different communities, different cultures coming up together, not only to protest on what actually had happened. You see, you could see everybody on the same page. And I think that's exactly how you started this show, is how we're going to rebuild and heal our immigrant communities by us being able to continue to work together in a very systematic way. So when we came up with this collaborative, I said, wow, it was really long overdue. And I'm so glad and excited that with this community, we're going to be able to rebuild and heal. Again, if all of you can go to rebuildandheal.mn.org, would really appreciate to support these small businesses.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I want to take it a step further because Mercedes, you know that I'm kind of fresca, right? I'm real fresh. I'm not shy. And I think, okay, that there's something to be said for people, you know, as they say, talk is cheap, right? And a lot of people out there, you know, that have thought perhaps that they were enlightened, and I'm talking about corporations too, right? That they were more aware or woke or whatever you want to call it, okay? And had initiatives to really support diverse communities, whatever, you know. But if you want to really bring it up a notch and really make an impact, you can be part of something huge, huge here. This is a very unique opportunity, okay, to restore and restore quickly. Okay, the very community that's at the epicenter of this massive world movement of a fight for equality, right? And for justice, like fair treatment, period, you know? And so, in order to get this community back to where it was, you know, and maybe even better, is to infuse direct investment into this initiative. I mean, you can't go wrong. Many times people say, "Oh, but we don't know where to start. Oh, we don't. It's so overwhelming. It's so." You know what? This is not that complicated. All you have to do is to ask the very people. Look, we have 4 amazing people that have given their lives to this. You know, to build this community, to really speak up for diversity, you know, and to look for resources, to poquito a poco, little by little, right? Build this community. And so then now it's in shambles. So what can you do? Let's invest immediately. We need, like, right now, you know, it's like a blood transfusion. We need right now to everybody to step it up. And I know of all these big companies that are throwing money wildly and with no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. Here's a real problem, a tangible problem that needs to be addressed to restore it to what it was, right? And so I think this is where we need to start. This is where all of these conversations, right, about equality, about injustice, about, you know, even police brutality, and about reform, and, you know, pick your subtopic, okay? But it all started on East Lake Street, okay, with the murder of our brother George Floyd. And so we need to bring this community back to its original glory. And so anyway, I just feel like we need to ask you guys, what do you need, and then provide you with the proper funding to get the job done, because you're there. You've been doing it, right? But now you're back to square one. Talk to me, Mercedes. Talk to me, Mercedes.
You're pushing my button, so you.
Yeah, I know.
So the first thing we need is for corporate America to step up and help us with this through their supplier diversity efforts. Mm-hmm. They're always talking about supplier diversity is important, diversity and inclusion. Now it's the time. We need corporations with either an active or a window dressing type supplier diversity program to reach out to us and help us rebuild and save the immigrant community so that they can continue to reflect their supply base to mirror their customer base, right? It's important to small businesses. It's important to them. It is so important for us to put supplier diversity at the forefront because many of these businesses are not able to grow and flourish unless they have the backing of big corporations. And so somewhere out there, one of those suppliers in Lake Street may be the next tortilla supplier or big conglomerate, big box. And so we have to think about that. One of those companies may be the one that will cure COVID-19 or have the technology or because they're so small and nimble, they can come up with a solution faster than a big corporation. And so I just want my supplier diversity folks, my colleagues and counterparts to really think about it. I know you have budgets. Donate to our Lake Street, Midway, and all the little companies that we have because that's where the innovation happens.
Yes, absolutely. And so what do you feel? Have you spoken to the business owners I'm sure you have. It's more of a rhetorical question. I think I have the answer to that, right? What is the feeling amongst your peers, like other business owners and people in the community about this coalition and and their involvement in this process right now?
Yeah, if I may add to that, I want to make sure that the public also understands that it's not about just giving money right now and let's get them back on their feet and that's it. Our organizations exist for a reason in the first place. These were folks that nobody invested in from the beginning. We're talking about immigrant folks como tu papá y mi mamá que vinieron a este país, que with all these dreams, of all these folks that have these dreams with nothing in their pockets and somehow, with a bunch of no's, when they had a great idea, when they went to the banks and every single bank in the community telling them, no, it's too risky. We can't give you a loan. Great idea, too risky. We're not ready. The reality is that folks need to start thinking about how innovative our immigrant communities have had to be to get to this point. What I'm trying to tell the public is that our organizations were folks that were already believing and providing capital. We were fundraising, trying to find how to get capital for these great ideas. Again, for those paleterias, for those taquerias, for those pupuserias that I've been talking about. It took us so much to get to. And now what we want is for them to not have to struggle as hard to get back to that point. But That's not the end of this. I think it's more to this. Like now we need to have this conversation about how do we continue to start investing? How do these corporations don't just give a donation of here's a couple bucks here and then we're good now, right? No, the idea now needs to be how do we incorporate, how do we bring some of these businesses and contract with them more intentionally to help these folks grow, which is I think what Mercedes was saying.
Yeah.
And that's what we ask, in order for us to rebuild and heal Minnesota.org, we need to make sure that this is not just an investment of the next 2 weeks or 2 months, but a long-term process here. Again, right now we're asking to just let's help these folks who never asked us for anything and we're able to revitalize our main streets. Let's help them. They finally, in fact, I'll tell you right now, Tammy, some of these folks are not even asking for help, because they don't even know that they can ask for help. We're the ones asking people that we need to support these folks, and it's important that we do so. So this is obviously emotional for me, and like it is for all of us. Because we're emotionally committed to it.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, this is a conversation that I've been having for a long time also. We've had this too about even before COVID, so now it's this. Obviously, this is like a physical, destruction of these businesses. But COVID also impacted our businesses, right? And we felt it harder than others because we're underfunded. We have less access to capital. It's really hard for us to scale. Even before COVID, there were still struggles, so this is like nothing new to us. The thing is, having had this community, right, that you already saw it vibrant and flourishing and doing it doing it on your own practically, and weighing in and leaning in on each other to see it in this shape. We really need to make an infusion into it to get it back to where it was and give it an opportunity to scale. Please, Henry, continue.
What we're asking is to help our folks, everybody across the country and the world to help us, because it's not about just rebuilding them. We want them to stay on Lake Street. They built Lake Street.
Right.
And, the reality is that there's already conversations of folks coming in, trying to buy some of these properties, trying to move some of our community members. Of course, they're in this situation where do I wait for another 18 months before I could even open, or whatever the circumstances is? What I'm saying is, help us be a model here in Minnesota. Help us keep our businesses that we worked so hard to open and flourish here. We need to help them. Let's fight gentrification on the ground, and by $5 a person or $500,000 from a corporation or whatever it might be. So we need to. This could be the model of how it can be. Just how can everybody be happy and be working and be successful and continue on with a successful business that they already have. They had successful businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be, when you mentioned the word model, it could be something you can replicate then in other communities too across the country that are experiencing that thing, right? That it's like, okay, we're here, we got here, but we're kind of stuck because they need the infusion of capital and also of mentorship and capacity building to be able to scale and grow. Anything else you would like to add, Jaylani?
Yeah, I mean, I also want to say that these communities built these neighborhoods and these businesses because we're resilient. I think I never want to undermine the capabilities of our communities, and I think this collaborative is kind of the exact idea of what it means to be an immigrant in this community and coming together. The work that Nasibu and Henry are doing. And Mercedes. I mean, I think people should be really proud of that the immigrant community is coming together. They know we've always been relying on each other's support. We've been always relying on finding ways to break down some of these barriers. And so we, as Henry said, we also know that some of those buildings were intentionally set on fire by the owners of those buildings in hopes to get some insurance money and because the neighborhood has gotten better, and there's corporate interests that are interested in coming in. So gentrification is real. We've been seeing this for quite some time, and this is just an effort to accelerate this gentrification. But we're going to fight back. We're going to fight back with whatever tools we have. We're not going to give up, and so and we know our community is resilient. They've been there, and we can get back there. So, I always say to those folks who are watching us today, don't look at somebody else. You're part of the solution. Your support is there, and don't think about your own pockets too. It's interesting. All of us, when we ask about fundraising, everybody forgets that they've been fundraising all their lives, and you've been supporting all these wonderful causes. So fundraising is a natural thing, especially in our communities, and many people. Your children fundraise for their school every day. right? So it's about coming together. It's about supporting each other. And when we do that here in this country, we can really be great. And I think as the people, march on the streets right now and protesting, demanding for justice, it's about us. It's not about the government. It's not about, all of these different things that we think that have power. The power is in the people. And also our money, our dollar diplomacy goes a long way. If we support immigrant-owned businesses, we're going to be hiring more immigrant folks, more people of color, people who are right now incarcerated, who don't get jobs. You know where they get working at? They go work at immigrant-owned businesses who give them that shot, because this country has built a system where if you are locked in a prison, you're also locked out when you come out of prison, right? Yeah. Think about George Floyd. George Floyd was working at a Latino nightclub because this club gave him a chance and gave him an opportunity to work, right? So people need to understand that immigrant-owned businesses are a lifeline for everyone, because we know it's hard to get a job. We know it's hard to survive in these economies. And so you're not just supporting a business, you're supporting a community. And I think people need to understand that. So I would say, go beyond your limited scope. Think about fundraising within your company. Send an email out tomorrow morning and send to your company. Say, hey, there's a wonderful initiative we should get behind. At least give people a chance to hear about it and let them decide to give. So, and then your church, your local congregation, think about how can your local congregation support? How can your local neighborhood organization support? Are you part of a business collaborative? How can they support? Right. And we're not asking anybody to break the bank, because I know COVID-19 has impacted all of us in unique ways. But right now, this is a national issue. Everyone's attention has been on our community here in Minnesota, and rightfully so. We just want to make sure that people also understand that immigrant-owned businesses were heavily damaged, and we do not want this story and this unique success that is happening here in Minnesota to be dampened because we didn't give a chance to support. So, we are resilient, but think a little broader for folks. Think what you can do. A couple of emails is how you move forward. I always tell the story of a woman who was supporting one of the organizations that I'm part of, and she sent a $20 check. And in the note, she said that, I work at Walmart. I barely make any money, but I saw this flyer that was sitting in the lunchroom, and I was moved by the cause, and this is all I have. That's the reality of our people. People give at any level. They always give a different, they give from their heart, right? And they understand that whatever they give is there to help each other, and it returns. And by the way, if you're giving, and hopefully in a time when it's safe to move around, come to Minnesota and see this wonderful community, and we'll host you. If you're one of those wonderful donors of us to experience this wonderful place. We have immigrant communities from all over the world here. We've made Minnesota a little more colorful and much more prosperous. So it's a wonderful story that I think we can all be part of.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Yes, about the resiliency, of communities, and how that's part of that shared experience makes us come together and maybe give people an opportunity where otherwise they wouldn't have it. Yeah. And so I want to just give people a picture of what that rebuilding looks like. What do you think in your mind's eye would be the first step? And I know that windows have been shared, so it's like from a physical standpoint. Talk to me a little bit about, I know there's been a lot of cleanup, and that the very residents of the area have been out on the streets also trying to, make sure that some immediate cleanup needs are addressed. But what do you foresee as the first, the biggest challenge, and also the biggest area where you can see some improvement?
So, Tammy, I'll start, and I'll tell you that the fundraising of Rebuild and Heal Minnesota is so important. Right now, it looks like a war zone. Even though people have volunteered and they have cleaned up the streets, it still looks like a war zone. I was in Cuba a few years ago, and I can tell you that I have not seen such devastation. Not even while I was in Cuba, I experienced that. And so the vision, the bliss, right?
Yeah.
What would that look like? to me, it would be tourist attraction where everyone can come into Minnesota and see a little bit of each of our cultures, as Henry mentioned, as everyone else mentioned. It's a destination place. So that I would love for you to come to Minnesota. I've been asking you to come.
Yes, and we were planning to, and then COVID, right? Yes, but we're going to make it happen.
And do the before and after. So look at the war zone, and now look at the tourist attraction. But for that, we need our corporations to step up. We need them to help us with this fundraiser. We really need them to put supplier diversity as a priority, as one of their pillars within their infrastructure.
Great. Thank you, Mercedes. And so some last thoughts. Nasibu, I want to start with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. As Mercedes said eloquently, the corridor really looks like a war zone. I categorize our next step into about 3 process. So we need to, we are, as far as I'm concerned, the response phase now, of which we need to continue to evaluate damage. But while we are doing that, we should all remember what has been destroyed is our communities' livelihoods. Most of our communities have used every single savings, every single dime they've had to be able to build those businesses. As Henry said, with some support from us, because no one else was able to do anything whatsoever for our people on the corridor. So we need to help them to figure it out. Some of them do have insurance, most of them don't. Because of the COVID, we have a few of them who had actually canceled the insurance coverage because they couldn't afford to pay insurance coverage. At that point, they had to actually figure it out and decide as to whether they should actually buy bread or pay that insurance. And most of these businesses did not qualify or did not get any support whatsoever during the stay-home order. So with that, they canceled their insurance coverages. They didn't have any funding to be able to pay for that, so they don't have anything right now. So within this response time, we need to help them at least to be able to survive, to be able to live. They don't have any savings whatsoever. Their savings was those small businesses that all got damaged. Right. So we're done with that. Then we're going to go to the recovery now, start thinking about reopening. And again, they're still going to need our supports. I know that there are a few corporations, we talk about gentrification, we talk about this big corporation that have started eyeing on some of the real estate properties in there. That's going to take quite some time. So our immigrants, businesses, our people need help yesterday. So if we could support them to, again, as I said, response time, recovery time, be able to reopen, be able to take care of these small things at this point in time, that's how they're going to be able to re-emerge really very successful. We're going to be with them all the way regardless. But again, as all of you have said really very well, with whatever support that these small businesses will be able to actually get from everybody in this country, will be very, very, they will be very grateful. And then down the road now, we're going to, again, be so hard into making sure that there's no gentrification, because we're going to preserve our culture, as Henry said eloquently. And for us to be able to do that is to make sure that these small businesses are going back to where actually they started their journey. And that's going to be a bigger picture. I think that's going to take a little bit long time, but we're not going to be able to get there if we don't take care of the now. So we need to start rebuilding and rehealing and healing our small businesses and support our immigrant businesses like right away.
That's great, and to preserve culture in that process. Absolutely. And so and thank you for that, Nasibu. And Jaylani, any last thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I want to just re-echo kind of the challenge that I posed to our community. This is a moment right now where we all need each other. This is a moment we are reflecting on what's happening. It's a moment that we recognize that we have to fight for justice in this country. We have to make sure that we make radical transformation of the criminal justice system that is impacting all of us. And this is a moment of the community power. And so I challenge all of you who are watching today to show your power by supporting this initiative, Rebuild and Heal. MN.org and see if people around you are willing to give and support. This is a moment to also know who's out there and who's real and who's been standing for our community. And so challenge your company, challenge your faith tradition community, challenge your neighborhood organization, challenge your Facebook friends. Put a challenge out there for all of them to see if they can support in this time. And we will rebuild and heal. We're just going to do it with whoever is interested in the bigger picture of our unity. America's greatest challenge has always been diversity, but it's also its greatest asset. And we can't run away from this fight. We can't run away from the identity that America is built by people who came from all over the world. And this identity is critical for who we are and for our generations to be born. And in these moments when we have to choose how we move forward, we have to choose together, and we have to choose in a very bold way. So I challenge all of you who are watching today who hear this, flex your power.
Yes, I love that. Flex your power. Thank you for that. And Henry, any last comments?
Yeah, I do want the public to know that this collaborative is not new. We didn't just come up with this idea of coming together to support each other yesterday. In fact, we have been working together for years. We have supported each other, maybe informally, but I could tell you that we've been calling each other, supporting each other. We're at the legislature talking about the same bills and why they're important for our people. We're trying to get meetings with the policymakers, trying. And it's interesting that now that we're in an emergency mode, guess who they're calling? They're calling us. They're calling us and what are our ideas? And our ideas haven't changed. The more that we invest in our people, the better the state will be. The more that we invest in our people, the better this nation will be. That's where we're at. And I think that we're at the section of not just social justice, but an economic development crossroads here. Like it goes together. There's a reason why people were struggling. There's a reason why George Floyd was in that corner that day. There's a reason for all that. And if you invest in our people, that is going to happen less and less. And I'm excited at the opportunity that we get. Unfortunately, I can tell you that all my brothers and sisters here, just like many listening right now, are overworked trying to make something out of nothing for our people. We're just asking for a little bit from all of you. Help us get through that finish line right now, because I can tell you that we are pushing like never before here in Minnesota, and we will be a model for the rest of the nation, and we need your help right now. And I appreciate that, just family, for being on your show, and I hope we can have a follow-up, and I hope that we can bring some of our business owners at the next one, and we can tell you, look, fueron solamente $1,000, pero estos $1,000 le ayudó a esta persona de esta manera. Or this way, we were able to help somebody with $3,000 or $5,000, but it helped them in this way. And I can tell you that investment of that sort with us pays dividends, man. It pays like nobody else, and it's just mind-boggling to me that our corporations and our government haven't figured out that they should invest in our people. And I think it's about to start happening, and it's going to start with our own people investing in their own people.
Yes, absolutely. You know what? That you mentioned that first off, I'm like controlling myself, because I just want to bust out crying right now with what you just said, because it's so frustrating. And I'm just going to put it out there. It just pisses me off that it's more of a reactive response to what's happening. Okay, so now there's a crisis, and I'm like, people, there's been a crisis in our communities all of this years, and so then I agree with you. I had that epiphany about a year and a half ago, actually, about that we're so strong in numbers, right? And I was participating in an event for the Latino community. And I said, if every Latino in this country gave $1, we could help fix a lot of our problems, because it would be $60 million that we would have in the bank. And so you're absolutely right. I said we can do this. We could totally do this. But how awesome would it be if all the corporations and the government, instead of having a knee-jerk reaction when a crisis hits, if they sit down and ask those questions, like you said, that's what like got me going. You know, when you said when they call us and they ask us what can we do, the answer hasn't changed.
I got one more. I got one more. Go ahead. I know Jaylani's parents, Nasibu's parents, my parents, Mercedes' parents. My mom is working cleaning hotel rooms right now. Okay. If you're tired of being the one Latino or one East African or one immigrant in that corporate room and like, oh, it's always me. It's always me. Well, I'm asking you to think about our parents who were the only one having to clean those freaking rooms all the freaking time. Today is the time that we go harder than ever before. We have to come out hard and push our CEOs or whoever you have to push in investing in our communities. You're the only one in those rooms. And guess what? You push harder, you won't be the only one tomorrow. That's why we got to push hard. We have to push harder than ever before. That's what we're about right now. Everybody's doing it. The NBA, the NFL, corporate folks are doing it. Even if you're by yourself, you're no longer by yourself. Our people are freaking tired of this. And if money comes here, I can tell you 100%, our organizations will get it to the people that didn't get anything from the federal government. Folks who are using IT numbers, folks who are cleaning our offices because that's all they can do, even though they have degrees. I'm asking you, let's go hard because we are all going hard right now. But our people have always been going hard. Thanks.
Yes. I mean, there's no better way to wrap this up. I am so thankful for each and every one of you. I feel inspired. I feel I'm a little bit upset. I'm not gonna lie right now, but that's good. That's healthy because if you're not upset, then you're gonna let it slide, and we're not gonna let it slide anymore. Okay, I'm committed to you. So even though I'm all the way in Orlando, you need to know that I am gonna come visit. You know, pre reopening, and then I want to be there too for the ribbon cutting. You know, of this vibrant, and we're gonna do this. Okay, you can count on me and my entire network because it's on. It's on. Mercedes, do you want to say anything? I don't want to end without giving you the mic.
I just want to say thank you for being my guerrera. I've seen you do revolutions, and this is what we need. We need a Puerto Rican woman to revolutionize Minnesota. So thank you, mi guerrera.
Thank you. I think it's just, can I tell you, I just did my ancestry, and I'm a mutt. I'm not so much of a Puerto Rican. I'm from almost every continent. And so it feels good. I'm a citizen of the world, and I love you all for the work you're doing. And just know that here you have a sister, okay, to support you in any way I can, okay?
Love you.
And to everybody out there, please rebuild and heal mn.org. Okay, share it with everybody. Tag all of these people. You know who you know. Okay, in this world, there's no more 6 degrees of separation. We're talking, you know who you are and you know who you know. Okay, so let's make this happen. Okay, and if I'm not clear, let's make this shit happen. Okay, I took it there. Okay, so God bless you all, and let's do this again. Okay, to share the good news. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, God bless you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.